Welcome into the latest edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'm Doug Kazarian alongside professional bettor and handicapper Wes Reynolds, as we're both located in Las Vegas, that is. But a lot to get through. We have a Game 6 elimination game potentially for the Boston Celtics on the road at Madison Square Garden. Should be an electric atmosphere. And we now have a Game 7 on Sunday out in the Western Conference. Nuggets and Thunder. So many layers to that game. We'll get into that as you are now watching a new show here on the BetRivers Network under the Betting Weekly umbrella, Betting Weekly Fast Break. This is our second week, every single weekday that we are wrapping up our second week, I should say, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Wes, good to have you on board here.
Good to be with you, man. A lot of action going on in these NBA playoffs, and we got some WNBA starting tonight. So that season gets underway. So a lot of hardwood action going on.
Yeah, I'm just tweeting out some stuff, as we speak. This is the beauty of live television. So, we got a lot to break down. Like you said, the WNBA opening night, we're going to talk some futures and opening weekend point spreads and totals. At the end of the show, some prop bets. I have one that I absolutely love, a season-long wager that I think is not quite free money, but the market is certainly mispriced. But let's start with the NBA. And we just want to remind you, this is a brand new show, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We also have a baseball show, Betting Weekly Hardball, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, also Monday through Friday. We just wrapped that one up as well. So Game 7 on Sunday. These teams have been going every other day, particularly the Nuggets, who started going every other day since Game 5 of the previous round. So this extra day of rest will be significant, I think, for the Nuggets, who obviously don't have a lot of depth. There's been an adjustment in the point spread. It was 10-ish, 10.5 sometimes. For the Thunder, every home game in this series, it's now 7.5. So definitely an adjustment here. Aaron Gordon did seem to hurt his hamstring at the end of last night's Game 6. I'm a little uneasy for Game 7. We'll see, and we'll get an update, I'm sure, throughout the weekend. The over-under has certainly adjusted to 13.5. It was as high as 231 range, got to 218 yesterday, but Game 7's in an overwhelming rate go under. So, Wes, I have to ask you, because Denver, in a lot of ways, could have already won this series, although they got a gift in Game 1 with the comeback late. But they're 5-1 ATS in this series. Maybe take away Gordon's bank 3 at the end of the game the other day. So let's say it's 4-2 in theory. But this was a lopsided series price, minus 800, minus 900. Why has this series been so competitive in your eyes?
Well, I think you have a young team in Oklahoma City. I know they won 68 games and they've kind of been on the come up like the last 2 years, but this is a different breed altogether now, being in the playoffs. And I just think that you have a team, at least the core of the team in Denver, even though they're not very deep, as you mentioned earlier, that they have that experience and they know what it's like, having won the title a couple of years ago, having made it to the conference semifinals, did get beat by Minnesota in that series, but they understand the pressure, I think. And I think Oklahoma City, even the coaching, Mark Daigneault, who's one of the best coaches in the league, he's been a little shaky with some of his adjustments and some of his game plans. I think in this series, some bad challenges, and all those go together when you're just not used to these games with these kind of stakes. It's a lot different than playing in February against a tanking Pelicans team at home when you beat them by 40. Okay, so I just think there's a little bit of that there. I don't think Shea necessarily has shot the ball very well. He was kind of like feeling out his hand a little bit, I think, throughout the entire Game 6 the other night. So you have just a team not used to this role. Now the expectations are there. You're not the plucky young team that Sam Presti has put together that's kind of, gotten a lot of buzz in NBA circles. Now you're a team that's expected to do this. And it's Denver that doesn't have the expectations. They fired Michael Malone the final couple weeks of the season. Adelman takes over, and he's actually won more playoff games than he's won regular season games because it was so late in the regular season. So that's what I think. I know that sounds very simple, but I think that's what it comes down to with these two teams.
What a great stat. And I haven't heard it. Maybe I've just been my head under the rock, but that's a great one that I have not even heard on social media or anything. It's very, very
he's won 7 playoff games and 3 regular season games as the head coach of the Denver Nuggets.
Fantastic. I agree with you. I think it's a tightness thing for the Thunder and experience. And like it or not, the postseason is just played differently than the regular season. It's a different animal. We learned this type of concept with Moneyball back in the day, right? The Oakland A's over 162 opponents. You can only project so much against one opponent in a back then best of 5 in the first round, or here best of 7. It's a matchup based. Now you shouldn't use stats out of thin air, so you have to go off the regular season stats. I get that. And the math guys who use those stats, who shape the market, they're going to use that as well. But it's a soft number, all things considered. The only thing making it a firm number is the limits are higher, and people who influence the market are betting sort of the limits. But that doesn't mean their numbers are tighter. It's, to your point, some of these regular season performances when the Nuggets or Thunder in this case go to, I don't know, catch teams on traveling to OKC and just punt, and the Thunder depth just works to their advantage. It's a different animal when you have a guy like Jokic willing to go 38 minutes so often. I mean, even a decade ago when Paul Pierce was on the Brooklyn Nets, right, the end of his career, in the postseason, he was willing to play the 4 spot and bang around with other power forwards, but he couldn't do that over 82 games. So things change in the playoffs. Something as simple as that. Benches shorten. We know that. So I think Dangno is sort of learning through trial by fire, so to speak. And while Adam is definitely a newbie coach, he's got his dad to lean on. But these players for the Nuggets have championship mettle, and they've been there before, and only a couple years ago. So I think that's what's going on. And Thunder at some point can't just play loose and free like you can in the regular season and roll teams. I think they're playing not to lose at the end of games. Frankly, we saw Denver doing that last night a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't even dribble the ball at half court, and the Thunder were stealing the ball. So things get tightened up for sure.
Yeah.
But I lean Nuggets. I need to get an update on Aaron Gordon, but if he's healthy, I like the Nuggets a lot in this game.
I haven't decided where I'm going with the side here necessarily, but just looking at how the Thunder, in terms of their components, somebody's got to step up. Like Shea has still been scoring. He's had a couple good shooting games and a couple poor shooting games. Like his scoring has been basically consistent, but Jalen Williams is a guy that averaged over 21 a game for the regular season, only averaging about 16 and a half in this series. So you need more consistent scoring. I think you're getting the rebounding from Chet. He's had a couple off games, but you need that second scorer to be consistent for Oklahoma City, and you haven't had it. So I haven't decided what I'm doing on the side. On the total, you're already paying the tax here for an under here, 213. I think there's as high as 213 and a half. Really, the game to go under. Everybody likes the game 7s, but it's the game 5s when it's tied at 2-2. That went under. I think that went 217 was the final, and because the under I think was like 222 at the close, and then game 6, of course, goes over. I often think like elimination games for one team, you see them go over, but I think the total is probably right here at 213, even with the adjustment. It's probably been over adjusted, and that's why you've seen a little bit of a comeback, because I think this got down to 212 and a half in the overnight in some spots, and then you see a lot of 213s and 13 and a halves this morning. So clearly, at least the early bettors are playing the over adjustment in that total. Like you mentioned, this range was 218 to 230 at some point.
Yeah, I'm all over the place because I agree. I saw as low as 212 last night, but game 7s statistically have just gone under so much over the years. It's for a variety of reasons. You play the same opponent 7 straight games, you know their offense. You can, if some guy's killing you like Jokic, you're going to counter something. I know there's no stopping Jokic. There's bothering Jokic, whether it's a double, maybe Holmgren with the length can come over and the help. Also, just the measured possessions, the pressure of game 7. Shooters aren't going to shoot loosely. The offense will, a few more beats on offense to run their sets. Guys are more tired and they're going to be shortened bench, so they're going to be just more fatigued. The whistle, this is probably the biggest factor. The referee is going to swallow the whistle more. I don't think you'll get Holmgren SGA in foul trouble. I've played a lot of unders. The last 2 games I went under 1-1. It had a chance late last night, but there's a lot of fouling at the end. So I think the adjustment's probably right, but I wouldn't bet over. I would just not bet the under. That's kind of where I am with this total. Are you any play on the total at all at this current number of 213.5 at BetRivers?
No, not really. I'm probably going to be looking at some props. Of course, you did mention SGA got those 4 fouls, got that 4th foul near the end of the first half, and that's what Denver made their run. Because what was Oklahoma City up by 12 when he left the game? I think with a couple minutes.
No. He left when it was like 4. Like they started to make the run when it was 12, and he was in there.
Okay, because that might have been after he picked up the 3rd, and then he picked up the 4th right away, and you kind of saw that he was basically looking to be a scorer in the second half. Like he wasn't really rebounding. The assist, there was a couple that came in the 4th quarter, but he wasn't really being aggressive for rebounding because I think there was a little bit of a fear factor there. That okay, I'm going to pick up, my 5th foul very early, and what's going to happen to me is what happened to Brunson in the previous Knicks-Celtics game where he got in big time foul trouble. I did notice that they closed a little bit more with Caruso last night. Caruso did barely get over that points, rebounds, and assists last night with a late 3. But yeah, they're going to close with him, especially when they're down. Now, when they're up, they'll keep Dort in the game because Dort's a really good defender and one of the best ones in the league. But when they're down, that's how you got to determine, like with your player props, what do you think it's going to be? Do you think they're going to be down or do you think they're going to be up? And that'll kind of dictate where you go from there. But I think the Thunder, it's really wild because I think that they lay over these guys. Like, I think that they're better than Denver, but yet they find themselves, having to win a 7th game here. But I think Denver has looked better, kind of the holistic view of the series. But I think if you go like up and down, I think the Thunder is a better team. They're a better defensive team. They're a deeper team. And yet they find themselves going to a 7th game on Sunday.
Well, there's no doubt they're a deeper team. Defensively, yes, and I was very close to tweeting this because I saw missed assignments for a team that's rated so high defensively. They do some stupid things on defense. Even that inbounds pass, Holmgren was supposed to cover the short corner 3 underneath the hoop, but the inbounds pass was on the opposite side, so the long way on the baseline, and Brown's sitting there wide open. Like, what are you guys doing? They help too much off the short corner 3 sometimes. We saw that with Tatum early in the series for the Knicks-Celtics series. Like, what are you guys doing? It's KYP, know your personnel. Dort's excellent, but even Dort got Jokic to pick up his dribble last night at the top of the key, and he left instead of crowding him. And so he let, I think it was Hartenstein close. Again, Jokic had picked up his dribble, but it allowed Jokic to shoot a 3, and he made it. Like, you're there. He's off balance. You're crowding him. You don't need to go get your other guy. Stay on him. So there's just a lot of sort of lapses. And frankly, the quality of play on both sides of the court is better in the postseason across the board. So you're going to get a better performance out of the Nuggets, and Jokic, you're going to get MVP type performances late in the series. And now you got an extra rest. So when I said maybe that the Thunder are the better team, I know what you mean. Yes, they are. But when you factor in Jokic and how young this team is, and I think guys like Strother and Brown can hit open jumpers just like some of these other guys for OKC. And SGA has been playing really well, all things considered. Jokic did hit a wall mid-series, but I think he's going to have a monster. Now, you mentioned props. I think they're going to play. I learned the hard way the other day. I had McConnell over something, rebounds and assists, and he only played 10 minutes in a closeout game. So I would be careful with some of the bench guys. I learned the hard way. So that means Jokic and those guys, everything's going to run through them and things like that. You think overs, but then if the total's been adjusted lower, and they typically go under. So I'd be careful with points props, but I'd be looking at rebounds props, overs, and things like that. So maybe Chet continues to rebound. I mean, you can get at BetRivers at least 12 rebounds, plus 175 for Holmgren, over 9.5 minus 118 probably is the best bet for me.
I will say one thing, though. Last night, I thought that the Thunder were going to close it out because I wondered how much energy Denver had left after Game 5, because you had Murray and Jokic play the entire 4th quarter, which they rarely do, especially together. And I thought, man, these guys played those 40, mid 40 minutes. Like, they might be running on fumes at the end. And it seemed like they had the energy. And it seemed like the Thunder were a little bit tired, having to play those extra minutes. Yeah. I think that's certainly a part of it. And then then the fact that they had a deficit and then had that bad third quarter where they were down 9 going into the fourth, and then the Nuggets eventually got it to 15-16, I think was the high of the game. But I wonder, it was all about the energy, because Jokic, I thought Sir Charles and everybody that was making the observation was like, he looks tired, and he did look tired, but he found his second win for sure, and that's what makes him the best player in the world.
And Murray, hats off to the mini flu game, right? So Murray had a really strong performance, was clean with his jumper and things like that. So Holmgren over 9.5 rebounds, minus 118 is officially a play for me. We'll recap that at the end of the show. Any props that you're at least thinking about flushing it out here, or definitely want to go on record with?
Well, I wonder if, you mentioned Murray with the flu game. It's like, okay, do I fade him now in the next game? And I'm a little bit gun shy to do that, because I want to know if Gordon is going to play, because I think what you saw Gordon's the fifth option. Whether it's Brown out there, whether it's Westbrook out there, he's the fifth option offensively. Even with Michael Porter Jr. kind of having an up and down erratic series offensively, I think Gordon still is kind of the fifth option. So I want to see, how much Murray, what he's going to do here, because I think he outperformed expectations clearly, because we didn't know if he was going to go. So I want to know what Gordon, how much he's going to play first, but I would lean a little bit under points, rebounds, assists with Murray. I think there's 31.5 out there right now, 30.5. That's where I would lean. That's kind of what I do a little bit once you get deeper in these series, where you kind of have some sell spots with some guys, and maybe it's a sell spot for Murray in Game 7.
Yeah, the old stock adage, sell the high, buy low, buy the dip kind of thing. So I looked at Murray. I feel like he's going to be right there between 17 and 23. I think it's going to be one of those things with a Game 7, the unders. I certainly would be under before I would be over for his points. So something to keep in mind. Okay, let's go to the big game in the Big Apple tonight. Game 6, Celtics at the Knicks. New York, a little tight in the last game. They were up 3-1. And they were probably thinking, my God, we can actually do this. Tatum's out. Porzingis isn't 100%. We're up 3-1. And the Celtics definitely circled the wagons, win one for the fallen star, Boston's home crowd. It was a unique game, okay? The circumstances were unique. Celtics, a lot of guys played great. Now the question is, which of that we saw in Game 5 can carry over into Game 6? What's projectionable? What's something that we can count on that was not just inherent with the unique situation of Boston? What do we think can actually carry over or even change? Can the Knicks play better at home? What can be different in your eyes, Wes, like in terms of what can we actually project, because we know Tatum's also going to miss this game?
Well, from a player perspective, and I think that we're both actually on this one, they can't play Porzingis. He got phased out of the lineup. He only played 12 minutes, and I'm kicking myself for not playing that points, rebounds, and assists, which I looked at. And he ended up, I think, now 1 point, 1 rebound, no assist. I mean, obviously, that is a big time outlier. Like, he's going to give probably at least a little something in this game, but
they said he couldn't breathe. They said he had trouble breathing.
Yeah, they can't play him very much. They have to be very judicious with how they use him. So who's the beneficiary of that? Not only with him giving you a very limited contribution at best, but with Tatum being out, I think it's Peyton Pritchard that's the beneficiary. And you saw that in game number 5, where he scored 17. He took 17 shots. He took 14 threes and made 5 of them. So that's why I think Peyton Pritchard, usually you want to sell a game like that with a bench guy or a reserve guy. I think you continue to buy here with Peyton Pritchard, just because I think that's who they're going to have to play. How deep is Missoula really willing to go into his bench? He played Cornette. Cornette, by the way, had a huge game, had 10 points and 9 rebounds based on what he gave him in the regular season, but they're not going to go that deep. Like, maybe they'll play Hauser a couple extra minutes, but they're only going to play 8 guys and essentially like 7.5 when you assume Porzingis is only giving you about half the usual minutes that he plays. So I think that is something that you're going to look to carry over, because much has been made, I think, about like the Knicks, right? the Knicks, that Tibbs doesn't go very deep into his bench. And he never did that in Chicago either, and wore those guys down. And it's the same thing, too. It's McBride and Robinson playing, and maybe Precious Achiuwa, if Towns is like in foul trouble, gives him a little bit of a blow. But that's basically all they're playing. So you're going to see the shorter rotations as you get deeper into the series. You may get an outlier with a bench guy playing well like Cornette did in the last game, but I think from a Celtics standpoint, you're going to see Peyton Pritchard, be a contributor and play almost starters minutes tonight. I would be shocked if he did not. Now you got to look, okay, who's going to be in foul trouble? Because somebody's always in foul trouble for the Knicks because Tibbs doesn't really go that deep into his team. It was Brunson last time out. It's been Hart. It's been Towns. Somebody's going to be in foul trouble tonight. So that's the way I would look at it from a Boston standpoint. From a Knicks standpoint, are you going to get these guys that have had a couple shaky games step up? Like Miles Bridges or Mikal Bridges, I should say, did not shoot very well last time out. So you're going to get more out of him. You got to get something out of OG. OG had a terrible game, 1 of 12 last time out. So I think maybe you get some bounce backs out of those two guys.
That was my question from a point spread perspective, and the totals adjusted up because obviously Tatum's a good defender and they're going to be shooting the three a lot. They went down next even. So I understand the total coming up to 211. From a point spread, I lean Knicks. I do think that Celtics were going to get that last game because tightness for New York, and then everyone just rallying cry for
fallen hero. Yep.
Yeah. Now, I agree that Pritchard's sustainable from last game. I don't know if Cornette is. I don't know if Derek White's going to start out 5 for 5 from 3 or anything like that. He's going to have a good game for sure. And his points prop went up. I just think the Knicks, with Brunson's leadership, and let's face it, Bridges has championship pedigree from college. OG, still a solid player, reliable. Towns has been in big playoff games like last year. I don't think these guys are going to crumble. I don't think it's automatic with the home crowd, but I lean Knicks. It's Knicks or pass for me. What about you?
That would be where I am too. I think Boston kind of laid everything out where it's like, hey, we're not going out like suckers here, because everybody was like, okay, this series is over. It's going to be Pacers against the Knicks. And, Boston is a championship team here and still has the core of that team. Like, they're not going to give up. They got veteran guys, who and good leadership, especially like Al Horford and those guys, some of the veterans on this team, and everybody's kind of bought in. So they weren't going to give up, but I think that they've run out a little bit here now that you essentially have like 1.5 starters out because Porzingis, just tough series for him, tough matchup for him. And I think, he can't really guard Karl Towns down there in the post. That's got to be Horford. So one of the things that could do is take a little bit away from the scoring punch for Al Horford because he's got to be down there for defense and rebounding, where that's what he's got to focus on and let everybody else kind of hit the three. So I did look a little bit at Al Horford under points, rebounds, and assists at 19.5. And that number, I believe, is still widely available out there, including at BetRivers. So that'd be another angle that I would look at here because I just think if it might be a lower scoring game, you're going to need Horford there defensively because the Celtics basically, because you can't count on Cornette, like you were saying 2 games in a row, they have no resistance at the rim. Horford is the only line of defense.
I think Kata should play. He should match up with Mitchell Robinson. That's exactly who his sort of counterpart is.
Right. But Joe Mazzulla has not trusted him. Look, I know it was a blowout game, but Kata, I think he played 2 minutes and got 4 points late, but they haven't used him at all. I think. Really, I think he's only played about 4.5 minutes combined in this series. But, do you do that in game 6? Now, we saw Denver do that a little bit with Julian Strawther, where they gave him a little bit more run. And probably because he had it going, it's like, okay.
Westbrook forced their hand, too, to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. So that those are the things that are a little bit more unpredictable as you get into like that 8th, 9th, 10th guy in the rotation. So that's why I don't do much with them. But yeah, Horford is basically their only line of defense, and he's picked up foul trouble, I think, in at least 3 games in this series. So, I'd be looking some unders with Big Al.
Yeah, me too. He's going to retire after this season. He's not going to come back with Tatum out and everything like that. So, and he's been playing every other night, and I wouldn't count on him for any points. I would bet his under points. I know you're on the PRA. I like his points under because he's going to have to play defense, eat some boards. And if there's a brick fest, then he'll get some cheapy rebounds, so to speak. Just
Yeah.
last check at BetRivers, 87% of the money and 71% of the tickets on the Knicks money line. So of the splits there, the money lines there. BetRivers also took a $12,500 bet on the Knicks money line at minus $1.35. So big bets coming in on New York. I do think that's what ultimately happens. And we see Horford on the screen here, under 9.5 points, minus 117. He can shoot the three. I get it and all that, but man, Big Al, certainly running on fumes, so to speak. So before we switch to the W, Wes, did you have a final comment here?
No, I think we're both in agreement that we like the Peyton Pritchard over points. I think 14 and a half, $1.25, $1.30 on the VIG. I think he's going to continue to score, and he's going to continue to get looks too. I think from the three. I didn't really want to take his over threes because 3.5. I think it's juiced to the under, but Pritchard isn't just a 3-point shooter. Even though he took 14 of the 17 shots were from three, he'll try to drive the basket and get to the foul line too. So I think his production at least is going to continue.
We want you to join the conversation. John Zhang chiming in. What's your take on Hauser's minutes and over under 1.5 threes made? I would bet over or pass. He's a guy who's been instructed to shoot threes. Like even the last game he had early on, he had at the elbow extended, he caught the pass and he shot a contested three, even with Pritchard wide open in the short corner three. I couldn't believe it. But Hauser's, to get him to sort of understand that he belongs, they've encouraged him to shoot. So I think he'll shoot more. Wes mentioned that he expects more minutes. And John, also remembering that I was on Brown over 7.5 rebounds last game plus money. Yeah, it got there, but I'm a little uneasy because he was 6 in the first half and things calmed down a little bit. So my concern is that, again, Wes and I discussing what's sustainable from games 5 to 6 is that bounce in the step, fallen star, all that stuff. I'm a little uneasy going with Brown. He might have to turn into more of a scorer in this game. I just think it's going to be a tighter game. Offense is going to run through him a lot. I don't think New York played with a 3-1 lead. I think they're going to play a little bit more desperation today. That means a little bit more intense defense. I'm right there at 7 boards. Brown could get there. He's great, but he's also going to have to fill up the stat sheet. And I think offense will be a bigger priority. I think the defense will shift to Derek White. I agree that Pritchard's going to have a lot of looks, and he'll get looks inside the three. He drives well. So I'm doing the over 14.5 points, minus 130 at BetRivers, and not the over 3.5 threes. But I'm passing on the Brown rebounds. Any thoughts there, Wes?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I had my own sweat in the last game. I had Karl Towns under 19.5 points. He finishes at 19. He had 10 in the first half, and then he got his third foul, and he all of a sudden got going. And then it was kind of like, okay, Tibbs, going to take the starters out of the game. You're down close to 20 here with 4 minutes to go. Yeah. No, he doesn't. So that's what always kind of scares you. And now Towns, by the way, is 20.5. So an adjustment has been made. And that's probably part and parcel of the fact that they're favorites. So you're going to get the home team and the favorite team bumped a little bit more. So I'm absolutely passing on the Karl Towns because I've had a lot of stress on some of these props on the points and the rebounds in this series. And I'll just stick with my Peyton Pritchard.
All right, just a reminder for the newsletter, everyone sign up at bettingweeklystudios.com for weekly betting tips and the entire newsletter. Nigel and the fellas done a wonderful job with that. And we are always on, essentially, on the BetRivers Network, Betting Weekly Live, 11 a.m. Go visit the Betting Weekly Studios on the YouTube Network channel. And a lot of good content on there. One of my favorite show names, if not my favorite, The Dojo. So I love that name for a show. Betting Weekly Fast Break is what you are watching. We are in our second week, every weekday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And we also launched Betting Weekly Hardball, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So we've digested some NBA. Any interest in Pritchard? I don't know, 30-1 to be the leading scorer of the game over at BetRivers. I know Brunson's expected to bounce back. OG Anunoby 25-1. These crazy props have hit. Randall hit a couple. Your boy Podziemski almost hit it in the closeout game for the Warriors. 30-1 on Pritchard to go off. He did play 39 minutes last game. He's the most efficient player for the Celtics all series. It's tempting to get involved at 30-1.
Yeah, you got to play. I guess fear does not exist in this dojo if you're playing this market with the dojo show on our BetRivers Network. It could be worth a little lottery ticket. I mean, if you're playing those, by the way, and I'm not somebody that always plays those. If you're playing those, don't play them for like the normal, usual financial increment that you would have on your bet. Play a lottery ticket. It's like I handle golf futures. If I'm playing a full unit on a 20-1, I'm going to play half on 40, kind of balance that out. That would be something I would play like a quarter of whatever your unit is on.
1 unit. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm on like,
yes.
But the leading scorer every game has not been Brunson or Tatum. Like, that's my point.
Mm-hmm.
It's erratic. Josh Hart hit 100-1 ticket in, I think, in game 2 of BetRivers. So I would play them all series, maybe the next series. Whoever advances, I'd be looking and thinking outside the box. It's not just chalk, predictable transition. Coaches are making adjustments, and there's counters to the counter. So I would encourage that. But a one-off, obviously unlikely to hit, but look what's been going on the last couple of weeks in this NBA postseason. Not only the lottery with the Mavs winning with a 1.7% chance, but these games at the end of the game, Pacers down 7, 40 seconds ago, they win in regulation. Who knows, right? So something to keep in mind. I do think there's good, maybe lottery tickets, as Wes said, in that situation. Okay, we turn the page to the WNBA. Opening night tonight. Interesting season. We have expansion. There's now 13 teams, increased to a 44-game schedule. I think the conversation is not just because we have our Indiana native and IU grad Wes Reynolds here on the show, but I do think the conversation starts with Caitlin Clark. After the Olympic break last year, she was amazing. She recharged her batteries and played great down the stretch. Won Rookie of the Year, all WNBA first team, finished 4th in MVP voting. I do think we're going to see an extension of that sort of progress and improvement. And she bulked up a little bit. The question is, how much better is she going to be this year than what we saw at the end of last season?
I think she's going to be better, but I think she's got more help now. So maybe you don't see she'll still, I think, be an assist leader, but she's not going to handle the ball all the time now, because now you do have a actual real backup point guard with Sydney Colson coming in from the Las Vegas Aces. You're going to have Kelsey Mitchell at time probably handle the ball. And she's got more support, I think, from a scoring standpoint, but you still have the core there with her, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston. But the addition of DeWanna Bonner, the addition of Tosh Howard, these are veterans, and these are veterans that have been to the NBA Finals, that have won a WNBA championship. And then I just think that the coaching with Stephanie White is clearly an upgrade with this team. So assists probably are still going to be there because she's going to, play a bulk of the minutes, but she's going to have a little bit more help, I think, this time around.
I think tons more help. And that's another question, because look, she's obviously, they used to say this about Tiger Woods, like he moved the needle. Tiger was the needle for golf, especially early on when he really changed the popularity of the sport. The WNBA started to get popular, but Caitlin Clark became the needle in women's sports. Now the league has sort of responded, and there's other people who move the needle, like Angel Reese and whatnot. But the talent is now matching the needle, so to speak, the popularity, because the Fever are now amongst the 4 favorites right now to win it all. And in the previous 2 years, it was a super team versus super team. It was always expected to be the Liberty and the Aces in the finals, and we got that 2 years ago. Last year was the Liberty and the Lynx. And now if you look at the top 4, plus 350 or lower odds, then a big drop to the Mercury at 16-1 at BetRivers. So the question is, do you agree that it is a 4-horse race, and it's not just top heavy with maybe 2 of them? For example, do you think the Aces are still a contender and things like that?
I do think it's a 4-horse race. Maybe the dark horse is the Storm. I think that they would be maybe the dark horse to kind of get in that top 4. But I think you really, going into the season, do have a clear top 4 in whatever order you want to put them in. I would go Liberty, Lynx, probably Fever, Aces, and that might be like a number 3 with the Fever and the Aces. But yeah, I still think all those teams are title contenders. The Liberty still have their core. They did add Tosh Cloud, a guard from Phoenix.
She's
Ace,
awesome.
Yes, she is, and especially defensively. And then the Aces get Jewel Lloyd. I think probably it was the right time for, I guess, maybe, I don't want to call it a divorce, but I guess it was, with Kelsey Plum being traded to the Sparks. I think she's going to help the Sparks too. And I think they're going to be a better team, and especially if the young players they drafted last year can stay healthy. But I think the Aces are still right there. There's still a little bit of question of their bench because Clark is now in Seattle with the Storm. So everybody's had some changes. The team that I think has had the least amount of changes, though, is the Minnesota Lynx. And that would be like if you asked me, who do you think is going to win the championship? I would say the Lynx. I think that they have a culture there. I worry a little bit about their depth. I do worry a little bit about their bench, but that starting five is cohesive with Collier, with Williams, with Alana Smith and Bridget Carlton, Kayla McBride, same starting five, Cheryl Reeve. There's a lot of continuity in that organization. So the Lynx, to me, I think they might be on a mission too, because they thought they should have had it in the finals last year against the Liberty and, won a couple crazy games in that series and, won the championship. But the Lynx might be the mission team for me this year.
So there's a narrative out there that's going to remember the San Antonio Spurs lost the NBA title on the Ray Allen step back and all that. And that the next year they went on to win the title convincingly over the Heat. There's some narrative that that's going to be the Lynx this year, that they're on a mission. And there's some quotes recently saying, and there's a fair point, that they didn't really gel until midseason last year. And now they have continuity coming into this season, although Kayla McBride's going to miss the opener. I get that, but a lot went right for Minnesota last year, i.e., there was a hangover season for the Aces, coming off back-to-back titles, and their head coach, Becky Hammond, saying, yeah, they were dealing with commercials and the spotlight, and Chelsea Gray, their point guard, wasn't really healthy at all.
The whole lawsuit with Derek Hamby.
Yeah, and Plum with the public divorce and things like that was draining. So, but now there are other contenders. Yes, the Liberty are just as like last year going to be right there, but now the Fever have arrived. So there's more sort of legitimate contenders, and I don't think the Lynx are sneaking up on anyone, but you're right. The continuity there, they basically have, just for people who don't follow the league that closely, their star is Navisa Collier, who's kind of like baby Jokic. She can shoot threes. She's around the post. She does not get sped up at all, and that's where like the Jokic similarity is the most. She can play the post high and low, does not get sped up, plays at her speed. And then also she's surrounded by shooters to the point where they're dead last in rebounding last year. Like they punt on rebounds. They just have open threes and the ball pops and they have great offense and they milk the shot clock and it's always a wide open three or layup. And it's great offense. And they have the Olympic coach with Cheryl Reeve. And you're right, Wes. They're going to be right there. I'm just not ready to go there because I had them last year in the futures market. And it was awesome. And we almost got there at the overtime in game 5. But I just think things aren't always incremental. Like much like I know the Spurs got over the hump the next year and won after the Ray Allen shot. I just don't know if it's going to be as happy of an ending with the Lynx as that was for the Spurs.
Well, there's not a ton of value there on the Lynx, I think, really either. What are they, like $350 right now to win the championship? You know that the Fever probably, even though I think that they are a legitimate contender, you're probably not getting the best of the price there because people want to, like Caitlin Clark is the needle, like you said, people want to bet them. Okay. So it's not a team that you're getting necessarily the fairest of value on. And the fact that they are better, they are deeper. I didn't even mention Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham, who are really good shooters and really good defenders off the bench. And, I just think much better team. They are much more prepared for this moment. They all kind of stayed together in Indianapolis and worked together. So
I love over 30.5 wins.
Yeah.
It's a 44-game season. I think they can get 35, 36 wins. What's your take?
I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. Maybe I don't want to say slow start, but maybe they come out and they start like 3-3 or something. Not as certainly not as bad as they were last year, where I mean they couldn't even dribble. They couldn't even dribble the ball against the New York Liberty.
It was 2-9 start because of 11 games in their first 20 days. The league illogically had that schedule because they were trying to put them on national television. But they have a better coach, as you mentioned, with Stephanie White. They have better depth. I think they're actually going to be the team that takes the regular season too seriously. We see that in the NBA, the Cavaliers this year. I think they're all in on the regular season more so than maybe the Liberty are, maybe more so than the Lynx are. Teams that went deep into the playoffs last year and did it, like the Lynx almost won it all not being a top seed, or maybe they were. I can't remember. Either way, I think the Fever are the one that are going to come out of the gate storming, even though there might be some adjustment period, just new team, new chemistry. I actually think they're going to be regular season warriors.
Well, you look at the schedule, it is easier to start. They have
Right.
Chicago on Saturday and then a home and home with Atlanta. Then you get the Liberty at home on Indy 500 weekend at Washington, who we think is going to be really bad because they're still young and rebuilding. And then Connecticut, who obviously they've lost almost their whole team. They only have Marina Mabry left, and she wants to be traded because she's looking like Will Smith at the end, the final episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like, where'd everybody go? Dejanay and everybody, Bonner, Thomas, they're all somewhere else. So Connecticut is the team that's probably going to be near the bottom. But yeah, you don't really have
What are your favorite futures? What are your favorite futures along all those lines?
in terms of I agree with you on the Fever wins. From a bet the championship standpoint, I don't know if I would bet the Lynx. They're who I think are going to win it, but I don't think you're getting a lot of value.
Fair.
But I do have a couple awards that did interest me at least a little bit. If I like the Lynx, it's like, do I like the Lynx to win the championship, or would I go with Nafisa Collier for MVP? And follow along with me here for why I do that, because Aja Wilson, and Caitlin Clark, the rightful two top choices. Nafisa Collier, I think, got a lot of goodwill around the league and a lot of the game of basketball because she was the one, and Breanna Stewart was involved in it as well, but Fee was the face of Unrivaled, which I think at least, got to show women's basketball in a different context. There in the offseason, you had less players feeling like they had to go over to Europe or over to China, and some of that had to do with what happened with Brittany Griner, of course, but I think Nafisa Collier, and she's been in all these like business seminars and interviewed in all this mainstream media. I think she got a lot of goodwill. She is very well liked and well respected around the league. So Nafisa Collier for MVP at 3-1 or plus 350 might be a way to pivot from Aja or Caitlin Clark, who are certainly going to get the bulk of that. And then a couple more awards. Sophie Cunningham to be the sixth woman of the year. Obviously shop around for the best price. BetRivers, I think, is about 550. Sophie Cunningham, people poo-pooed that trade because of course, Nalissa Smith going to Dallas and then, Sabali going to Phoenix. And it was like this 3-team trade. And it's like all the Fever got was Sophie Cunningham. Well, it's like, you got somebody that you needed. You got an absolute pest and an absolute annoying nuisance on the floor, which is what Sophie Cunningham is. She can hit threes. She can defend. She gets you angry and she gets you out of character because she's willing to talk some, what, she's willing to talk trash.
She's got some Bruce Bowen in her, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Sophie Cunningham, I think she's embracing like playing with Caitlin Clark. Like she's so excited. Yes. You saw that at the All-Star game last year when it was in Phoenix and she's sitting courtside with Tasha Cloud and Sophie's had a few cocktails and she's going up and hugging Caitlin Clark and having a nice little conversation. But, now with the Fever, I think for sixth woman of the year, she would be
behind that for sure.
Yeah, she would be somebody I would look at. And then the last one, coach of the year, this has dipped a little bit. It's now down to about 14-1, but Carl Semesco takes over with the Atlanta Dream. Carl Semesco, if you've never heard of him, he was the coach for many years at Florida Gulf Coast. And every year it seemed that team got the automatic bid and got in the NCAA tournament and would always be that 12 seed that was kind of like a tough out in the first round. Semesco wants to run a little bit more. I don't know if you'll see the full effect of him this year necessarily because of the fact that the Atlanta Dream they've got, I think, too many big players and not enough guards and not enough quick wings. But this guy is going to be an upgrade at coach down there, and Carl Semesco knows what he's doing. I think the Dream are at least going to make the playoffs. I don't expect that they're going to, threaten that top four. They're probably going to be like 6 or 7 out of the 8 teams that make the playoffs. But Carl Semesco to me at 14-1. Steph White, I believe, is like the almost odds on at some books right now. And she's certainly an upgrade over Christy Sides. But if you want to go with a little value, Carl Semesco with the Atlanta Dream.
I think that's a sharp play. I really liked Atlanta's chances coming into the season, but then Jordan Canada, essentially their only point guard, got hurt.
Yeah.
Now as of now, she's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. It looked season ending, but it hasn't been officially that. Hopefully it's not because she's a dynamic player. But a lot of these teams, when you don't have a playmaker, a lot of times they're these Ari McDonald just got cut, but some of these guys, they inject such speed and orchestrate the offense. It changes everything. So I think they really needed Canada. So that got me off their win total. I still like the play for Smesko because maybe coach of the year can go to like a 5 seed or 4 seed, something like that. I like your angle on Nafisa Collier for MVP. Cunningham as well. She's definitely a 3-and-D player, and she'll be a contributor. We actually don't even know who's starting, but I do think she's going to be coming off the bench. How
Yeah.
about opening weekend? Any plays? I was leaning Minnesota, but then McBride's out, so that number's down to 5.5. Maybe a money line parlay with them in Atlanta on opening night just to get a little action. But my only play for this weekend is a small play on the Fever, but I'm banging over 9.5 assists tomorrow for Caitlin Clark. That is, I think her prop's going to get up to 10.5 by literally game 2. I think she's going to be, she's minus 400 to lead the league in assists. Just for perspective, she had double-digit assists 12 of the final 22 games last year, okay? Once she got recharged, she was distributing, and she had very little help in terms of offense. Now she has much more scoring around her. She knows the veterans need to be fed. She's going to distribute the ball well. She's not going to, there's not going to be videos on social media of her teammates fumbling the ball out of bounds off passes or blown layups. They're going to finish, and this offense is going to be spread more effectively in Stephanie White's offense, and players are going to hit open shots. I think she's going to average like 11 assists this year. So I think over 9.5 in the opener against a Chicago defense that honestly is not that good. They have bigs, but it's not that good. No Kennedy Carter this year. I think Chicago's going to stink, but we'll see. But either way, I think that's the best way to play tomorrow. That's a full unit for me. Caitlin Clark, 10 plus assists.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. Probably going to be a sellout there in Gainbridge for the opener with the Sky and the Fever. We know that there's a lot of heat between those two teams, even though one of the main actors in that heat is now gone, Kennedy Carter. We'll see if somebody resigns her like mid-season, maybe Atlanta. If I think she was a former member of that team. We'll see. She's currently a free agent, by the way. But the one play I do kind of like for Saturday's card is Aces +4 in the market. There might be a 4.5, and a little bit of that is play against the ring and banner angle with the Liberty. Of course, everybody's going to be going. They're going to be excited. They're in Brooklyn. Big Ellie, the best mascot by the way in the WNBA, is going to be doing her thing. So it should be a lot of fun. But I think the Aces, Jewel Lloyd, I think probably fits a little bit more what Becky Hammon and what the Aces want to do. Now, they've got to shore up the depth a little bit because I mentioned Clark is gone. Colson is gone. Tiffany Hayes is gone. But I think the two best backcourts in the league for my money are the Fever with Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and then Chelsea Gray and Jewel Lloyd. Jackie Young, too, because they run 3 guards there with the Aces. But we'll see. Is the young girl Elizabeth Kitley, who would have been a high lottery pick, is she healthy? She'll be backing up Aja Wilson this year. But the Liberty, they made some changes. They lose. Was it Lainey Hamilton? Is now gone.
Injury.
I forget the one that was in the expansion draft. Who's now with the Valkyries? It's just not coming to my mind here. But they added
Michelle. The UCLA product, I believe.
Yeah, and she was part of their depth. But look, the core is back with Stewie and John Kell Jones. Isabel Harrison comes in from Chicago, could be a good ad. Febich, I thought, had a really good rookie year. And then, of course, you have Sabrina and now Tasha Cloud. So Liberty are the rightful favorites. But I think the Aces, they might have a little chip on their shoulder because they're kind of being the forgotten team, I think, a little bit. I think you made a very good point earlier about that. So Aces +4 for me on Saturday in Brooklyn.
And Asia always dominates New York and dominates Breanna Stewart when they go head-to-head defensively. So I do think I'm on over 30.5 wins for the Aces. I just wonder if maybe the chemistry is not quite there game 1, but could be a giant flat spot for the Liberty celebration, raise the banner, all that stuff. Maybe Aces first quarter, but I'm with you there. So officially for you, Aces +4 at the Liberty, and then Pritchard over 14.5 points minus 129. I'm on the same play as well for my official play. I'm also going Holmgren over 9.5 rebounds minus 118. I think he gets double-digit rebounds. I think there's going to be a lot of clanks. He grabs them. He's tall. I did tweet yesterday that the only thing worse than him during the series is his haircut, but then he airballs a shot. But he played okay yesterday. It's just been disappointment since missing the free throws in game 1. But I do think he'll at least pad the stats with rebounds, and he plays a lot no matter how poorly he's playing. Those are half units for me, and then a full unit on Caitlin Clark, over 9.5 assists or 10 plus assists, minus 104 at BetRivers. So 5 total plays for you on this busy basketball weekend, thanks to the WNBA starting. So, Wes, we went a little long today, but obviously we had to get into the W. I did it yesterday with Albert and Wynn, so anyone listening can go check that out, get his thoughts as well for the upcoming season. But we have a Game 6 tonight in the NBA, a Game 7 on Sunday, and then we're on to the conference finals at some point next week, depending on how the Knicks-Celtics game goes on. So congratulations to you, Wes. Exciting time for your native state of Indiana with the Pacers already in the conference finals and obviously the Fever among the favorites this year. So thanks to everyone. I know it was a little longer show than usual, but we had to get the W conversation as the season gets going tonight. So for Wes Reynolds and everyone behind the scenes, we appreciate you watching. Join us again Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern for this brand new show, Betting Weekly Fast Break on the BetRivers Network, and we'll see you on Monday.